Hi guys, it's Kelly Latevola here, and I am back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today I'm using the Happy Birthday die, the Happy die. There's some other things I'm showing you here. Music Speaks I used. I did not use the sheet music. I didn't really know what I was going to use. I did use the Music Speaks with the matching dies, the Happy Birthday dies, and the Heartfelt Pocket dies. So here I am attempting to make my first Slimline card. I don't know if it's my very first, but it's my first intentional creation of a Slimline card. So I have a piece of paper that is cut to 7 inches by 8.5 inches. I scored it in the center at what is it? 3.5. I scored it at 3.5. And then here I have a 4-inch panel that I've scored at a 1/2 inch because this is going to be a trifold card. So this is a little bit different for me. You can see I just used, I do have a score board, but it's too big to fit on the camera. So I just used my Fiskars trimmer to kind of double, to use the like the notch that's built into it for the paper trimmer. I just use that to score with. And then this is a Teflon bold folder, which is what I typically use to fold over my cards. I also have a 3.5 by 8.5 piece of paper that is going to, that's the main piece I'm going to be working on, and then I'm going to attach it to my card base. Here, I'm going to insert this panel. I started with the Hero Arts Precision glue, but I think mine has sat too long and it was a little bit difficult to get out. Mine is old, so that's probably my own fault. But I'm just going to line this up inside the seam and then fold that over, so that way there's the front of the card, open up, that will be one panel, and then open up again, and then I will be able to write my message down there. So I am doing some ink blending. This is that 3.5 by 8.5 panel that I was telling you about, that this is the main one I'm going to be working on, and then we'll attach it to the card base later. I'm starting with Abandoned Coral Distress Ink, and I'm going to take this about probably like 3/4 of the way up. I do want there to be some white left at the top. I want it to kind of fade off into this red. So I'm using heavier pressure down below and then getting a little bit lighter as I move up. I am using traditional distress ink just because it is brighter and I wanted much richer color. After the Abandoned Coral, I'm going to put on some Barn Door for a really bright, like true red. And then you guys know I like to do my distress inking twice. So once I do the Barn Door, I'll go back over it with the Abandoned Coral just to blend a little bit more seamlessly into the, which, you know what, watching that on camera, I think I switched my lids. I'm going to have to double check that. Have to double check it. That happened to me the other day. I was doing a card and my blueprint sketch and black soot, I think, were switched. This here is, I'm using black soot, but I'm using just what's left over on my foam to add a little bit of shading down toward the bottom. And then I'm going to go back over that with the foam for the Barn Door. I didn't pick up any more ink. I just used what was on there to blend it out. And then here I'm using Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearl to splatter on the background, but I'm also going to use the nozzle from my spray bottle to do a couple of drops of just clean water to kind of break up that distress ink a little bit. Now I'm not working on watercolor paper. I'm working on Nina 80-pound Solar White. So I'm not going to get crazy with the amount of moisture that I put on it, but it can withstand a few small droplets of water with no issue. Then I'm going to mix up that Perfect Pearls and do the same thing, just spatter it on to add some shine, break up that color, make it a little bit more interesting for all of the things that I am going to put on top of it. I really like the way the background came out. I think that it is fitting for the basis of the card, which is, kind of important. So there's all that shine, and I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to get busy on my stamping. So do you see this big X here? When I am stamping like a background stamp edge to edge, I put a little bit of repositionable or like temporary adhesive on the back of my MISTI to hold my paper. My child was stamping the other day and he got crazy wild with the tape runner, and of course he used the permanent one, not the temporary. And so I have this huge like cross of adhesive. So it will get less sticky as time goes on, so I'm not super stressed about it, but it did add a little bit of a challenge to get the paper off for me. So here I've stamped all of my musical instruments from the Music Speaks. This actually came out, I believe, around Father's Day last year, but I've actually used it twice in the last couple of weeks for this card, which we'll get to why I'm using this particular set here in a minute when it's story time. And then I used it last week for Peanut's Valentine's because he wanted to do Valentine's Day pencils. And we found pencils that looked like guitars, and they had erasers that, you know, like the guitar base was the eraser, and it said, you rock, and I pick you, like the guitar picks. And so I used this to create his Valentine's Day box for the other kids to put his Valentine's in. Now, I was going to share that with you on Valentine's Day, but Microsoft is Satan, pretty much is what it comes down to. And they did another update and it totally messed up my audio and I could not get it back. I was I was like to the point where I was in near tears trying to figure out how to get the audio fixed because it was so terrible. It was distorted. It was garbled. It was awful. And so finally, after trying all of the fixes that I could find on the internet, I just uninstalled my audio driver and reinstalled my audio driver, and that seems to have fixed the problem, even though it took forever. Like I had to just let it go to install overnight. And then by that time, you know, Valentine's Day had come and gone, and even though I had already edited the video, I opted not to put it up. So if you guys would like to see them, you can see this year's Valentine's next year when it's more time appropriate. But today I am using them because it is Eric's birthday. It was his birthday on Tuesday, and this is actually his birthday card. Now, I'm a big fan of doing themes or them, you know, making sense for what they're, you know, what they go with. Now, last year, for his birthday, we actually went out of town. We went out of town and we did the cooking class and spent like a weekend away, which was totally awesome, but not really feasible with us working so much and saving for the wedding and all of that. So that wasn't going to be an option for us this year. So he would much prefer, and I think most people do, honestly, experiences versus things. And I think a lot of times we buy people things and we don't think about purchasing them experiences. And so when we were friends, when was it? 3 summers ago? I can't even remember. We went to see the Foo Fighters, which is my favorite, probably is my favorite rock band. And it was not the first time I had tickets for them, but the first time I ever actually got to see them in concert, which is a whole nother story. And it was awesome. We had a super good time and we ran into some friends from work there, and it was great. Well, they're coming back this year for their 25-year reunion tour, and the tickets just went on sale. Probably like, I don't know, a week ago. So I kind of had to wait to get them. And now with everything being digital, they're flash tickets, which means they just come up on an app. So in order to give somebody a gift of concert tickets, you can't just give them concert tickets anymore. You have to find a creative way to do it. So I thought that making him like a rock themed birthday card, with like a little printout that I made for the insert, that's why it's a trifold card, would be a fun way to kind of give him his birthday gift. They are, like, Foo Fighters tickets are expensive. They just are what they are. But I've been putting money aside knowing that I wanted to purchase them. And it's not like, it's an every year occurrence or something. They don't come every year. They aren't on tour all the time. And I love concerts. I think they're super fun. We had such a good time. In fact, there was one time we were playing a game about like best date ever, and he was like, I don't even know if it counts as a date, but like probably the Foo Fighters concert. And I was like, yeah, probably me too. It was such a good night. They were awesome. They played forever. Like, I think they only had one opener and they played for like 3 hours. It was awesome. So yeah, anywho, so that's how I decided on the theme of the card. It's been it's been a very, very challenging week. And that's why there hasn't been any videos, because last weekend when I sat down to do the voiceover for the videos I had edited, the Microsoft issue happened. And then on Sunday, well, let's reverse back. So my mom and dad went on vacation. My poor mother probably feels like she can't even go on vacation. I feel terrible for her. So my mom went on vacation, but as you guys all know, they take care of my grandmother. So Graham can't be left alone. She has to have someone with her all the time. And so in order for my mom to go on vacation, one of her siblings has to take care of Graham, take care of their own mother. And so my aunt came in from Texas to stay with her this week. And so how about I say and so one more time? On Thursday, I think it was. Yeah, Thursday, my mom called me at work and she said, is Eric at home? And I said, no, he's working a double, which I mean is pretty common right now, honestly. He's every day this week except for Friday, he worked a double. And I said, why, what's wrong? And she said, well, Graham fell. I said, is she okay? And she was like, yeah, she isn't hurt or anything, but Aunt Tricia can't get her up. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. My grandmother is 90. My aunt is 67. Like, nobody here's a spring chicken. So I said, well, I'm about to leave work. If she can kind of, if Graham's not hurt and she can make her comfortable, like, I'll be home in like half an hour. I could probably help. And she said, well, let me call Michelle, which is my oldest sister, and see if Jacob's home, which is my nephew, my grandmother's great grandson. And thankfully they were. And so Jacob and Michelle went over and helped my aunt get Graham up out of the floor. Wasn't injured. She had like a scraped her knee, I think, she had like rug burn on her knee from the carpet. But other than that, was perfectly fine. No complaints, no nothing. So then Friday, I had not really seen my aunt and she had not seen Peanut. So I sent out a text message to my sisters and was like, hey, I'm going to go over and see Aunt Tricia. I know it's Valentine's Day. Don't feel obligated if you have plans, but just FYI, I'm going over there. I'm just going to order pizza so that way, nobody's got to make anything. Just let me know if you're coming so I know how much pizza to order. So my middle sister, Kim, had plans. She's like, we're just going to go over later in the weekend. And my other sister, Michelle, and her boyfriend, Jerry, were like, now we're going to come. So I call my aunt, hey, how's everything going? She's like, it's kind of been a rough day. Graham's really out of it. Well, my grandmother has Alzheimer's. So honestly, that's really no big shock. There's days where she doesn't know who anybody is. There's days where she doesn't know where she is. And she's a trooper. She usually, you explain it to her and she's, good with it. And then, whatever, 5 or 10 minutes, you explain it again. And it just is what it is. That's what life is with somebody who has memory loss. And so I called my aunt. She's like, bad day. I said, do you need me to come over now? And she was like, no, 7's fine. I was like, okay. So 7 o'clock, I head over there, and Graham falls asleep on the couch a lot. Like, she'll just be, like tired, whatever, falls asleep on the couch. And it was very similar to that. If you would get her attention, she would answer your questions, but she really was not super interactive. So basically my aunt we tried to get her up into her walker to take her upstairs, and we could not get her, she would not put her feet down. to use her walker. So we ended up just making her a bed on the couch. My aunt slept downstairs in the recliner because we could not get, she wouldn't participate in getting her upstairs and nobody could carry her. So then Saturday, I went back over there. I had picked up some stuff from my aunt that she said she needed. She was worried about Graham being dehydrated, so she had me pick up some Pedialyte, and they were out of bread and just, stuff like that. So I picked that up. I went back over there. Graham was much better. She was, more talkative and was, getting up and getting herself to the restroom or getting herself to the kitchen table to eat, things like that. So we were like, okay, we're all good. And then Sunday, Eric went to work. Now, mind you, my parents are out of town this entirety of this time. And so Sunday is when my middle sister, Kimberly, went over there. And she called me and she was like, Graham's totally out of it. I think we're going to have to take her to the hospital. And I'm like, okay, did you call the ambulance yet? And she was like, no. And she was calling me because she's like, do I call 911 or can I call the non-emergency number? And I'm like, it goes to the same place. Call whichever one you're more comfortable with. I said, I'm going to get dressed, let the dogs out. And then, because I'm in my pajamas all the time. If I ain't working, I'm in my jams. And then I'll come down to the house, because we all live in a commune, which thank God in instances like this, because we are like 5 minutes away from each other. So I go down. When I get there, the ambulance is loading her up. I confirm with my sister. And then, so I have two sisters. My parents had three daughters. But then there's Amy. And Amy has been basically my best friend my whole life. I know that I've talked about her previously. We jokingly call her the fourth daughter. She grew up in the house next to my mom and dad. She still lives there. And I mean, she watches Graham on Saturday so my parents can bowl. Because, the rest of us are working. She takes the dog out, when they aren't home to do it. She's literally the fourth daughter. She's like another sister. And so Aim had seen the ambulance and she came over. And so we were talking and confirm which hospital she's going to. Ambulance is leaving. I text Eric, and I tell him, like, there's no need for you to leave work. We're going to this hospital. I'll keep you updated. Let's go back to the card real quick because we didn't talk about any of the coloring. So here I cut all of my die cut all of my pieces parts. The hearts are out of, red and black cardstock, and these are the hearts that are from the heartfelt pocket. And then I cut the happy and the birthday out of white, and then its outline out of vellum. I wanted them to have something that they were sitting on so that they were a little bit more substantial, but I didn't want them to be huge and take up, so much of the card, because Slimline cards are, you don't have a lot of real estate on the front. And then I'm going to use a combination of glue and foam tape to put the whole thing together. So anywho, we get to the hospital. My uncle's at the hospital. Amy comes up there. We're, basically just sitting waiting to hear what's what. Eventually, I'll give you the abbreviated version because we were there for 7 hours. We were there for 7 hours. Basically, they said she has pneumonia, which really we saw no symptoms of whatsoever. And then she also had a hairline fracture in her pelvis, which we're guessing is from the fall on Thursday, even though she appeared to be completely uninjured and didn't have any, pain or anything like that. So pretty much what they ended up telling us is that Graham has to go to a rehab facility. So they're going to treat her with antibiotics for the pneumonia, but then she has to go to a rehab facility because she cannot put any weight on her leg. So, here I lost the dot to my eye. I'm not hunting that thing down. I just used a white gel pen to fill it in on the vellum and moved on with my life. So while we were waiting, Eric came up to the hospital. Now, to add to this kind of craziness that's going on, my parents are also flying in this night. So Sunday night, they're flying home. Kim and Michelle were going to take the car up there and drop it off so my parents could drive themselves home. But now nobody's gone to the airport because we're all at the hospital with Graham. So it gets to be around, their flight's coming in at 11 p.m. We decide, because now my dad is also sick. He got sick about 2 days before they left Vegas. And so we're like, well, dad can't come to the hospital, but mom has to be at the hospital because she's, Graham's decision maker. So we decide Kim and I are going to go to the hospital. Kim is going to take dad home and then bring the car back for mom. I am going to bring mom directly to the hospital. That's the game plan. So we drive up, sit in the cell phone lot, the whole deal. They call, say they're ready to be picked up. And they come out of the airport and my dad looks rough. He looks sick. He's walking super slow. He's kind of stumbling a little bit. And I'm like, what is going on? So mom gets in the car and I'm like, what is going on with dad? And she's like, he's sick. I think it's a sinus infection. Maybe his equilibrium is off. And I'm like, okay. So the airport's much closer to the hospital than it is to my parents' house. So I take mom to the hospital and then I wait until I think Kim is home. And I sent her a text message and I was like, dad looks pretty bad. I don't think you should come back to the hospital. I think you should stay with dad. And she said, I was thinking the same thing. He's, super tired, very cold, which is unusual for my father. And so Kim ends up staying at the house. Eric comes to the hospital once he gets off work. And then we are trying to figure out what we're, mom's like, they're admitting her. They're just going to get her up to her room. There's no reason for you guys to stay. You know how moms are. And so I leave my car at the hospital for my mother. Eric drives me home. I go to my parents' house, strip Graham's bed, the couch, the blankets, all of that stuff, because she's got pneumonia. Pneumonia's contagious. And I didn't want my mom to have to do all that stuff when she got home because I was worried that, she'd be dead tired from traveling, going to the hospital and everything else, and she wouldn't even be able to sit on her own couch. So sprayed all that stuff down with Lysol, what we couldn't, get into downstairs for the laundry. And then by this point, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I've already called off of work for the next day because the next day was President's Day and Peanut doesn't have school. Well, my parents were supposed to watch him because that's what they typically do. And now that's obviously not going to be something that's an option for us because mom's going to be with Graham at the hospital and my father is sick. So I already took the day off, but poor Eric had to get up at I think 6:30 the next morning and go to work, and he worked a double on like 4 hours of sleep because he's totally awesome. But so yeah, that's just been kind of the week that I have been having, which is why there has not been a video. But now today there is. So on just update, everybody does seem to be doing better. My dad is not 100% yet, but we did get Graham into a rehab, which I don't know if she's going to end up staying at this one or not. It's very difficult for my mom to have her in a facility. She worries all the time. I totally get that. I would be scared, because you hear these horror stories. Now that's obviously not true. We only ever hear about the bad. It's the same way with cops. But so she's just a little bit apprehensive. So we'll see how that goes. So far, so good. But yeah, so I'm hoping today we actually took the day off. This is, even though Eric's birthday was on Tuesday, today is the day for us to celebrate his birthday together. So this is part of his, his gift, is this card and then his concert tickets. He kept trying to buy them. He kept sending me messages. Well, what about these seats? What about these seats? What about these seats? And I was like, oh my, I'm like, nope, they're too high because I have a fear of heights. And so the venue that it's in has super high seats. And I was like, no, sorry, I know it's a pain, but I'm like, stop trying to buy up these tickets, bro. I already bought the tickets. Stop trying to buy them up. So here's the little label that I used. It's got the date and the time and where it's at and little pictures of them. And so I just created this in Word, printed it out, and then trimmed it down. And you can see from the from the graphic that this is how we ended up with a Slimline card. But I do have to say that it was kind of fun to make something a different size. And then, the trifold just kind of added an extra element to it. So that way, when he opens up the card, he'll see his gift right away. And then he'll be able to read the note that I, write him for his birthday. Wrote him, it's already done. But now I'm just going to put this on top, and then, that's pretty much going to be the card. So it was kind of a long story time today, but there was just lots to fill you in on. And then I'm sure, I have all these other videos that are done that need to be edited that are in the queue. So there shouldn't be a shortage of them going forward. There should be plenty of them to get up there. So, yeah. So once I get this down, which I did, by the way, put a little bit of glue on the edges eventually so that I could take decent photos, because sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But that's it. That's the whole card. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and hopefully I will be back soon, and I will catch you on the next video.